the mind itself does not change objects during an instant. If it is claimed that it is universal because it grasps an object, this is also unreasonable, because it is attention that does that. There is another opinion that samadhi is in essence mind itself, because a scripture says that samadhi is mental training, or mind united with an object. But that is not a convincing proof. It says that in the sense that samadhi unifies the mind and causes it to unite with an object. Samadhi, included among the faculties, indriya, powers, bala, aspects of awakening, bodhyanga, and aspects of the path, marganga, etc., is not mind, just as memory, discernment, etc., are not mind. What is discernment? Its nature is discriminating an object that is being inspected, and its activity is that of eliminating doubt, because discernment seeks certainty when inspecting something that is meritorious, defective, both, or neither. Since discernment does not exist when one is not inspecting an object, or when the mind is deluded and obtuse, it is not included among the universals.
There is an opinion that even then, discernment exists, except that its characteristics are subtle and obscure. We ask, how do you know that, foolish man? He replies, the Abhidharma says that it is a universal. We reply, various schools do not agree on this. How can they be relied on as reliable testimonies? The scriptures speak of only 5, contact, etc., as universals. When you speak of 10, that is not scripture, and you ought not to be so obstinate. The 5 mental activities, such as desire, are not the 5 of contact, etc., and therefore are not universal, just as faith, craving, etc., are not.
12. Relationship among the 5 with specific objects. There is an interpretation, by Sthiramati, that all 5, with specific objects, assist each other, and when one exists, the other 4 must also exist. Another interpretation disagrees, because the Yogacarabhimi, Sastra, says that of the 4 alls, exists at all times, etc., the last 2 are missing. It also says that the 5 mental activities arise directed on 4 kinds of objects, and these objects and the 5 mental activities do not necessarily occur simultaneously. It should be said that sometimes only one of the 5 occurs. That is, only desire when there is something pleasing, only determined resolve when there is something definite, only recollection or memory when there is a past event, only focused attention when there is something being inspected. When deluded, obtuse people try to overcome distraction. Even though they focus their attention, they are still unable to investigate and discriminate. Everyone in the world knows that they possess samadhi but not discernment. There is asmall amount of scattered discernment, in the state of added effort, prayoga-avastha, consisting of what has been heard and reflected on, and for that reason it is said that samadhi has a contemplated object as its object. Alternately, this is said with respect to many cases, for instance, when the celestials who are oblivious in their play, kridaapradisika-deva, may focus their attention on an object and arouse craving or antipathy, they may have samadhi but not discernment. There are numerous examples like this. Another alternative is that investigation only arises with regard to something being inspected, i.e., when the mind is not focused but darts about in distraction, one investigates and seeks in a distracted manner, and there is no samadhi.
Sometimes, too, mental activities may occur, i.e., for instance, desire and resolve occur with regard to an object that is pleasing and definite. Or, desire and memory occur with regard to pleasing objects that were experienced in the past. We can continue like this until we come to samadhi and discernment, which occur with regard to something being inspected. Thus they combine to make 10 pairs. Sometimes, 3 may occur simultaneously, i.e., desire, resolve, and memory, when the object is pleasing, definite, and occurred in the past. We can continue like this until we come to memory, samadhi, and discernment, when the object being inspected occurred in the past, thus combining to make 10 triads. Sometimes, 4 occur together, i.e., the first 4, when the object is pleasant, definite, occurred in the past, and is being inspected. And we continue thus until we come to the last four: resolve, memory, samadhi, and discernment, when the object is definite, occurred in the past, and is being inspected. Altogether, there are 5 groups of 4. Sometimes, all 5 occur together, i.e., all 5 occur together when the object is pleasant, definite, occurred in the past, and is being inspected. Thus the 5, with specific objects, arise in relation to the 4 characteristics of the object, to combine, generally and specifically, to make 31 cases.
Sometimes, none of the 5 occurs in a certain state of mind, when the 4 kinds of objects are not present, during a sudden sinking of the mind, and in the store consciousness. There are a number of examples. These 5 may or may not occur in the 7th and 8th consciousnesses, depending on the state of development, as explained earlier in the discussion of the store consciousness. They may be associated with the 6th mental consciousness, whatever the stage of development, aside from the question of whether or not there has been a transmutation of the support. According to one interpretation, the first 5 consciousnesses are without all 5, with specific objects, because there is no desire for an object that is already acquired. In the act of perception, not being capable of decision, they cannot have resolve. They have no memory, because they always grasp a new object. They do not focus attention, because it is their nature to be distracted and unstable. And they have no discernment, because they are incapable of investigation and speculation.
According to another interpretation, by Dharmapala, the 5 mental activities may accompany the 5 consciousnesses, for the following reasons: even though there is no strong desire for the object, in the 5 consciousnesses, there is still a weak fondness for the object. Even though there is no strong determination toward the object, there is a weak impression of the object. Even though there is no clear and distinct recollection of the substance of a previously experienced object, there is a weak memory of its species. Even though there is no attending and binding mind to an object, there is a weak focusing of attention. In order to counter the notion that the 5 consciousnesses are concentrated in samadhi, it is said that they are by nature distracted and unstable, but this does not mean that they cannot be in samadhi, but distracted. Therefore, they may be associated with samadhi. Finally, even though they are incapable of investigation and speculation concerning an object, they are capable of a weak discrimination. Consequently, the holy teachings say that the paranormal powers of vision and hearing are of the nature of knowledge associated with visual and auditory consciousness. This applies to the other 3 consciousnesses as well, so there is no error in conceding that the 5 consciousnesses are capable of discernment.
These 5 activities with specific objects may not exist prior to the stage of freedom, but once mastery is acquired, they definitely exist. The reason for this is that desire that enjoys contemplating objects does not decrease, resolve that judges objects never decreases. Also, the 5 consciousnesses of a Buddha have as perceptual objects the 3 time periods, past, future, and present. Tathagatas do not have minds that are not in samadhi, and the 5 consciousnesses of a Buddha possess the discernment required to perform their tasks.
13. Mental activities with specific objects and their feelings. With what feelings are the 5 mental activities with specific objects, aniyata, associated? One idea is that desire is associated with 3 feelings, excluding feelings of sorrow, dormanasia, and suffering, dukkha, because the 2 objects, causing these 2 feelings, are unpleasant, and thus undesirable. The remaining 4 are associated with 4 feelings, excluding only the feeling of suffering, because the 5 sense consciousnesses are devoid of judgment, resolve, etc. According to another interpretation, all 5 mental activities are associated with the 5 feelings. A treatise says that the faculty of sorrow exists in the thought of supreme dharmas, because in seeking their realization, there is sorrow in not acquiring them, and longing for them. In places of the unadulterated feeling of suffering, beings seek liberation, because Manas possesses the faculty of suffering, as explained earlier. A treatise says that craving and thirst are associated with